Good morning, everyone. We'll give everyone just a minute here to hop on. All right. Well, it looks like we have a great group here this morning. Thank you so much for everyone taking the time to join. Today we are going to talk all about gratitude and how more gratitude in the workplace delivers on our mission here at Motivosity to help people be happier at work. I'm going to go over just a couple of items before we start, as people are logging on. So you'll see that your bottom tab, you have a Q&A box. So throughout the presentation or at the conclusion, feel free to enter in any questions that you would like addressed, anything that you want maybe more clarification on, that you want to be discussed further. We'd be happy to jump into those questions there. We also have the chat box. So if there's things that you want to agree on, comment on, feel free to enter those comments in the chat box as well. But let's keep our questions to the Q&A box just so they don't get lost in the chat there. If you would prefer to be unmuted to ask your questions, just go ahead and raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask your questions that way as well. All right. Okay, well, I am very excited to introduce Scott Johnson. He is going to be leading us this morning. And Scott is recognized as a technology leader and entrepreneur who has spent his career focused on making people's time at work count for something more. He was the previous founder and chairman of WorkFront, where he helped knowledge workers around the world be more productive. And now, as the founder and CEO of Motivosity, Scott is helping people be happier about being at work. Scott is passionate about leveraging technology in social ways to ultimately help people be more effective and get more value out of life. When he's not stuck behind his computer screen, you can find Scott trying to live up to his personal motto of stay young. And that is definitely true for him. So Scott, we will turn the time over to you. I'll let you share your screen and take it from here.
Great, very good. Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm excited to be here today. I don't often get to talk to a group of Motivosity customers, and I understand there are some prospects here as well today. And so I'm looking forward to sharing some ideas with you and also sharing a little bit of background on how Motivosity even came about. I'm going to share my screen here. Good. So I want to start today with a little story, and this story has to do with how Motivosity came about. I started this company called WorkFront about 22 years ago and saw that company grow from one employee, me cranking away in the basement for a couple of years, to over 1,500 employees. And the reason that company was even started is because of a kind of a pet peeve or something I care about. I really think that our time in this life matters. That there are one precious commodity is time. That's the one thing we can never replace. And we spend so much of our time every day at work. In fact, it's the majority of our waking hours. And it's important that what we do every day counts for something meaningful. I hear so many people talk about just a job, as if what they do all day every day doesn't matter. And what they do all day every day is just to help them have this little sliver of what they call life after work. And to me, that just seems wrong. Like what we should do, what we do all day every day really needs to count for something. There's this old tired meme from 10 years ago called YOLO, and those of you who know, you only live once, usually shouted by somebody who's about to do something life-threatening or stupid. And there's another way to look at YOLO too, which is make your time every day count for something meaningful in your life. And so as this company, we really tried to be the best company we could possibly be. We wanted to be a best place to work. And like many of you, and I'm sure many people on this chat or this webinar have done some of these things before. We looked at it and we thought, all right, how do we make this company be the best for our employees? And we did the awards, and we did the reward programs, and we did trophies, and we did free food in the break room, fully stocked. And we did a game room, and we did the perks. We had parties, we had events, we did wellness programs. We had all the benefits that you could think of. We did travel with teams, and we did all these things, and really trying to be the best place to work. And as the CEO of a company, people share good news with you, and you come to believe that, wow, everything is great here, and we were a best place to work. We're growing fast, and everything seemed good. And then I stepped out of the CEO role and stayed on as chairman, but there were people that I had worked with for years and years. And when I stepped out of the CEO role, which was in about 2012, all of a sudden, these people started coming to me saying, hey, Scott, I'm not really sure anybody cares about what I'm doing. I heard them say things like, it doesn't feel special anymore. And in all cases, I heard the dreaded phrase, it feels like just a job. And I think I might go look for some other opportunity. For me, this was awful. And not just because it was my company, but I realized that if our company cared so much about people and tried to do everything we could think of and still had top talent feeling like this is just a job, this is a big problem. And that really set me off on my next journey toward founding Motivosity. It was trying to solve this problem. And is this a big problem? Well, you've probably heard the phrase, heard about quiet quitting. It's the new phrase being used for people who are burned out. And Gallup did a study very recently and came to the conclusion that at a minimum, 67% of employees are quiet quitting. And it might be as high as 85% of employees are quiet quitting. People have been trying to impact employee engagement for the last 40 years. It was measured at the first time it was really measured in a widespread way was in 1980. And since then, there have been coaching programs and consulting programs and rewards and all the management playbooks for how to keep people engaged and everything that we've learned about keeping people engaged and motivated through the programs and processes has resulted in exactly zero change in 40 years. Zero, that's terrible. And so that's another reason why I founded Motivosity. So I started this company, and really the assumption was, first of all, happy employees work better together and produce more better things as a result. They produce better things and they produce more of them. So how do you get to happy employees? Well, the original hypothesis was that one of the key motivators for job satisfaction is being recognized and rewarded for what you do. And this is important. This does make a difference. It is key, but is it the key? Is it the most important key to having happy employees that work better together? And how do you recognize, reward people for what they do? Well, you have a program that helps them receive something of value for doing good work and help make that prevalent. And as you all know, Motivosity does this really well. It helps peers recognize each other. It helps them cover for some of the deficiencies that we see in management around the world. And those deficiencies that we see in management is that we hire managers and we pay them to get results. And we don't pay them to be good people or happy people or to be personable. And so what we end up with oftentimes in companies is employees that have very different experiences. You might work for a good manager and you think the company is amazing. You might work for a manager who's not so great and think the company is terrible. And so you see everything, you see all this disparity amongst employees in companies. And it's because, look, we pay managers to get results and we don't hire we hire managers, oftentimes promote them for being good at their job. We don't find people who are good at being managers. And so peer-to-peer helps kind of cover for that problem. So the problem is in my in the earlier experience is that rewarding people with something of value, it didn't turn out to be exactly 100% true. There's something else going on here that's important, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because there is a concept that is a game changer. And when I started Motivosity, I didn't fully realize this. And through the data and study and psychology, we've even come to understand internally what is it that's the magic about what we're doing. And the concept here that I want to talk about today is gratitude. Gratitude changes everything in companies. A couple of quotes I want to share. Gratitude is the single most important ingredient to living a successful and fulfilled life. Now, this is by Jack Canfield. Another one from a Harvard medical study: with gratitude, people acknowledge the goodness in their lives. As a result, gratitude also helps people connect to something larger than themselves as individuals. This is a big deal. It really is. Gratitude changes people more than being rewarded. Being grateful changes people more than being recognized. So this is the nuance here. Entry-level gratitude, or gratitude 1.0, is that you acknowledge goodness received in one's life. You receive something good, you acknowledge that, you're grateful for it. Taking it to a deeper level, it's an acknowledgement that the sources of goodness are outside of oneself. In other words, you're broadening your horizon on gratitude. So developing gratitude helps people become more outward looking by nature, which, if you follow any, well, we'll talk about a couple of studies here in a minute, but there are so many studies about helping people's mental health by helping them look outside of themselves and participate in a more meaningful way in the world around them. So if you have some extra time today, I would suggest hopping on YouTube and searching for gratitude and watching some of the content there. It's amazing, whether it's content about helping people be happy through gratitude, or helping people have a grateful mindset or gratitude habit, or how you can even rewire your brain through practicing gratitude. There's some amazing data and amazing experiences shared in all of that content. So as we look at what is the benefit to being grateful, there's been a lot of studies done, and grateful people, from a physical standpoint, they actually have they have a difference physically in their life. They have stronger immune systems. They're less bothered by aches and pains. They have lower blood pressure. They exercise more and they take better care of themselves. They sleep longer and they're more refreshed. Imagine what this does to your workplace when you have more grateful people at work. Psychological benefits. You've got higher levels of positive emotion, people that are more alert, more awake, more engaged. They experience more joy. They're more optimistic. We want people that solve problems in our companies, right? Optimistic people solve problems. And then social, they're more helpful, they're more generous, they're more forgiving, more outgoing. They feel less lonely and isolated. To me, that sounds like a lot fewer HR incidents and just a lot more happiness going on in a company. So there are some real benefits to being grateful. And the question then is, all right, can you learn to be grateful? This is important. Do you have to be just born a grateful person? Can you become a grateful person? So there have been a lot of studies done about this. And the one I'd like to talk about today was done by Berkeley. And it was a study done in 2017 with 300 people who were currently experiencing clinically low levels of mental health. So these are people who were already in active mental health counseling. And part of this group, so half of this group was asked to just do one simple thing. They were asked to write one letter of gratitude per week for 3 weeks. That's it. So 3 letters of gratitude. And then the other half, they weren't asked to do anything. 4 weeks after this exercise happened, the individuals who wrote the letters were reported much better mental health than those who didn't. And the interesting thing is that the difference was even larger 12 weeks after the activities. So not only did this start to rewire the brain, but that development grew and grew after the exercise. This is encouraging to me. Imagine what would happen if that exercise maybe wasn't weekly, but maybe daily. And if it wasn't 3 weeks, but it was forever. And that's what we're focused on. So it is possible to transform into a grateful person through practice. You don't have to be born that way. So my question to corporate leaders, and I know that you all know this because most of you are Motivosity customers, but what initiative could be more important in the lives of your people than helping them make this transformation? To me, this is the #1 activity for corporate health and well-being. Since I quoted all these other experts, I'm going to quote myself now. If there is one core competency that can bring about positive change in your company, is to be better at being grateful at all levels. And I really think this is true. So let's go back to our assumptions here and test those assumptions and look at maybe another lens of this whole recognition and engagement scenario. So yes, happy employees work better together and produce more better. Great. This can be influenced by constant exposure to gratitude, which changes people's nature over time. That's the nuance. We used to say, and most people say, and it's still true, that your #1 motivator at work is to be recognized and appreciated for what you do. But that's the inward looking lens of it. Being recognized and appreciated for what you do exposes you to more gratitude and helps you become a more grateful person. And that's the secret sauce here. So this happens by helping every team member exercise what we're going to call their gratitude muscle, which is that part of us that seems to grow and get stronger and stronger after exposure to this. So what does gratitude look like in practice? I'm sure that many of you have seen a change in your companies. And in fact, if anybody wants to share an experience in the chat or just share a little anecdote, that's great. Maybe we can review those at the end. But I'm going to share a few things that I've seen happen in our company. I've seen social media comments about our team here at Motivosity. And if you've worked with Lauren or Rachel, they are what we call movers. And they represent what we stand for so well, as does really everybody on our team. So I got a comment not too long ago that said, If nice matters, the people at Motivosity can't be beat. I'm not a customer, but 3 separate people have done a quick favor for me, no strings attached. These are people who look beyond themselves and are just happy to help because grateful people are happy to help. This was from an employee on her first day at Motivosity. This was her comment to me. When I first started meeting people from your company, I thought your happiness was nauseatingly fake. But then I realized that it's authentic and contagious. I knew I had to be a part of it. That's interesting. I know that happiness actually can turn people off. We live in a skeptical world, but this also sounds a little bit like the grumpy townspeople from the story Pollyanna. And I don't know if you've watched that Disney movie or read the book. There's a good quote from that I'd like to share. And this is from the author Eleanor H. Porter. And here's what she says about this Pollyanna type character who comes in, and because she's so grateful and positive and optimistic, she changes the outlook of the whole town. And she says, the influence of a beautiful, helpful, hopeful character is contagious and may revolutionize a whole town. People radiate what is in their minds and in their hearts. If a man feels kindly and obliging, his neighbors will feel that way too before long. But if he scolds and scowls and criticizes, his neighbors will return scowl for scowl and add interest. When you look at the bad, expecting it, you will get it. When you know you will find the good, you will get that. This is what we're all about here. In Motivosity, if you were a fly on the wall in our company, you might look at the flow of appreciation that's shared and the highlights that are shared inside our company and wonder if we actually get any work done because there's so much of it. In fact, internally here, we have 4.4 appreciations per employee per week. So we're pretty high on the chart of people who adopt Motivosity. We love it. You might question if the praise gets old or if it's authentic or if anybody even really cares about its value. But then you would look at the team and see the high levels of collaboration and the problem solving and cohesion that comes from having the same team mentality. And you'd notice that every single person is eager to help others regardless of their department or title. In fact, there's an interesting phenomenon that happens, and that is one grateful person on a team makes 3 other grateful people. It's that level, that influence that radiates. So you can imagine when everybody's a grateful person, how it just sort of amplifies and builds and keeps going. And that's really the culmination of what we're talking about here. Extreme appreciation looks like when this is growing on everybody, there is just a constant energy and vibe of positivity, and people come in the office and they want to stay there. They always comment about the energy and about how it just seems different in the office. And so this is what it looks like internally and what you would notice. So if you're new to this, you're just trying to figure out how do we get there from here. There are a couple of things that I would like for you to understand. First of all, there's some virtuous cycles. A virtuous cycle is something that spirals upward. There's a lot of entropy in the world and things tend to spiral downward. Well, virtuous cycles do the opposite. They're positive influences that feed and reinforce each other. And there are a few of these when it comes to gratitude that are very helpful. And the first one has to do with expressing or giving gratitude. When you express appreciation or encouragement or gratitude, it's a positive experience for the person who's giving that appreciation. It can be strengthened when accompanied by giving something of value. So think about what you know about Motivosity. Typically, companies give their employees $5 at the beginning of the month. And that $5 is used to say thanks to whoever you want, express a word of encouragement or appreciation. And by far, the average something of value that's attached to an appreciation is just $1. You'd say, yeah, a dollar's kind of dumb. A dollar doesn't make any difference. And it buys half as much now as it used to last year. And you're right, the dollar doesn't change people's lives. But when you give somebody $5 and tell them to go and give these things away, it creates 5 opportunities for the giver to feel a positive experience. And when they feel these positive experiences, their gratitude-centric point of view grows, which then results in even more expressions of gratitude. So that's the first loop. For me, as I've gone through this, and maybe I invented Motivosity to help myself. I don't know. There have been times in my career where I was not the best boss, and been accused of only finding the problems, and that's human nature. I mean, if you went and looked at the Mona Lisa painting, and like her nose was crooked, your first comment would be, what's wrong with the nose? Like, that's human nature. We always look for what's broken. And having something that forces you to practice gratitude actually really does help you. It has helped me think about what are the good things that I should notice, rather than just trying to be the fixer all the time. The second cycle has to do with receiving gratitude, and when you, of course, receive something, it's a positive experience. But more than the positive experience, it increases an individual's collaborative spirit, willingness to help, willingness to look around for ways to help. It increases an individual's willingness to solve problems. The best thing that happens in companies is when people are willing to step outside of their swim lane and chip in to help solve something they see around them. And having or being part of an environment where you have more recognition causes people to be more motivated to behave this way. So collaboration and unity create additional opportunities to express gratitude, because when people do that, obviously, they are typically recognized by one or more people for that. Finally, there's a third virtuous cycle, and that has to do with just watching gratitude happen. So you know the social feed in Motivosity, you know that people are sharing highlights and they're appreciating each other and all these good things are happening. Even if you're not at a point yet where you're really good at or comfortable expressing public praise or gratitude, when you're exposed to this, it also changes your behavior just as an observer, and causes you to want to be more helpful and more affiliative and more interested in others. And that was a study that was done recently, focused on just the benefits of witnessing gratitude, which makes a difference. So the greater number of helpful people results in more expressions of gratitude. So this feeds on itself as well, and builds and builds. So you may be asking, like, okay, these things, they build and build and build, do they ever wear off? And I wanted to answer this question for you all today. And I did this by pulling up some numbers from a random group of customers in Motivosity who all launched in 2014. So they've all been in the software for at least 7 years. And the numbers that I pulled were their numbers. It's their current snapshot of the most recent reporting period here. And these are the numbers. And does this look like it's wearing off to you? It doesn't look like it's wearing off to me. Most of them were still in the 90% of people being recognized, appreciated for what they do. High numbers of people giving thanks. You see a different mix of leadership participation in different companies, and you would probably see that that will reflect on their ENPS scores. But in terms of the front line, taking care of the front line, I think they're all doing really well. And this is 7 years into it, and it just keeps growing and growing. These are the same kind of numbers that we see 6 months into it. It just never wears off. So where do we start? Like, how do you kickstart one of these cycles? And we start with a little hack here in the giving cycle with Motivosity. And remember the study that we talked about, the writing study, that just 3 letters of gratitude actually made a difference in fMRI brain scans, and it made a difference 4 weeks, and then even more difference 12 weeks later. So this is definitely where to start. And there is a motivator that's even more powerful than being asked to write a letter once a week for 3 weeks. And that motivator, you may have guessed, is $1. Now this might say, if this is a new concept to you, this might sound like, how is $1 responsible for starting all this? There was a study done by the University of British Columbia and Harvard Business School very recently, where they gave a bunch of students some money. And the amount of money they gave them varied. Some students got $5, some students got $20, and they split the students up into one group of students was asked to spend the money on themselves, and one group of students was asked to give the money to somebody else. Now they had some expert predictions in this study, and the experts predicted that people who got the windfall of money to spend on themselves would be happier, and they predicted that the amount of money would make a significant difference in that. It turns out the experts were completely wrong, because at the end of the day, the people who had been asked to give the money to somebody else were the ones who reported a greater level of happiness throughout the day. And the interesting thing was, the amount of money made 0 difference on the level of happiness they experienced. It was the fact that they were given an opportunity to go and appreciate somebody and express gratitude. So then they thought, well, maybe that's just American students, like high quality of life, like the money doesn't really matter. So they actually went and replicated this experiment in 136 different countries, and the results were the same everywhere. It made no difference what your quality of life or your standard of living were. People who were given similar amounts of people who were given some money to give to somebody else were happier than those who weren't. So to change the behavior, an external motivator has to be done, and that external motivator is the dollar that you give to people to give to others. And the other aspect of this motivator has to do with loss aversion psychology. Did you know that you are 7 times more motivated to not lose something than you are to gain a similar thing? So that's just human nature. It's how we're wired. And we figured, since we're wired that way, why not take advantage of it? So the use it or lose it concept of the dollars at the beginning of the month helps people get that reminder that, hey, your $5 is going to expire. Do you want to say thanks to somebody? And it actually really does do a lot to help jumpstart that behavior and that habit, that gratitude muscle for employees. So we do this in our company at Motivosity. We give everybody $5 at the beginning of the month. It's use it or lose it. And these are used for 5 expressions of gratitude. And what ends up happening, and you might remember from our math, everybody gets 4.4 appreciations per week. Well, that adds up to a lot more than $5. And you'd be right. The money only covers about 25% of the appreciations. The rest are coming out of that gratitude habit. So there are ways that companies ruin this, and they mess with the psychology And just like the experts that got it wrong in the study, those same experts seem to be alive and well in corporate leadership. And we see some tendencies that kind of across the board that people have when it comes to this concept. And the first tendency people have is they say, well, this is all well and good, but we want this to be top down. We only want our managers to be able to give appreciation. We want to lock down the peer part and turn the money off because we don't trust them to do the right thing. And I guess you wouldn't be surprised that when you do this, it causes the front line to not to be skeptical about the program. It reminds them that in fact they are not trusted, and it causes the entire initiative to be met with skepticism, which undermines the whole reason for doing it. So this is one thing that we see very common. The next thing that we see is companies ruin the authenticity of the solution by controlling what can be received. So we hear sometimes questions, or we hear comments sometimes, can we control who can receive appreciation? Can we control who people can give appreciation to? We hear questions like, can we lock down the store so that, can we rename the currency? Can we make it something that doesn't mean $1? Can we lock the store down so that you're essentially saying to somebody, hey, here's a gold star. If you save it up, you can trade it in for a company yoga mat or a blender or something we think that you should want. And this kind of thinking messes with the psychology of the program. That messes with the loss aversion psychology because it changes the value of the thing. It changes with the psychology of giving something of value. And when people are in there and they go to, they look at the rewards, they're reminded that they're really just a rat in somebody else's maze. And it reminds them that maybe quiet quitting was the right thing to do after all. So the third thing that kind of messes with the virtuous cycles here is keeping it all private. Some companies, we hear requests to make everything private by default, to keep it hidden. It messes with that observer cycle, and it undermines the social aspect of the gratitude cycle. So these are three things to be careful of, and three kind of key components of what we talked about. So as we summarize today, I want to mention that these principles that we've talked about are the principles that Motivosity is built on. I've seen hundreds of companies experience massive positive change over the last 10 years. It's been really rewarding for me. This software replicates that writing experiment, but it's not just 3 weeks. It's anytime you want. It's multiple times a day, and it's forever. Now, the changes we talk about continue to grow and grow over time as the physical, psychological, and emotional benefits of being grateful take effect. We hear customers all the time, 6 months down the road after buying Motivosity, and they say, hey, we thought we were buying a recognition solution, but what we really got was something that connects our people. And the positive energy that we feel as a result has been a game changer for us. We're just wrapping up here, but you already know where to find us. We love your feedback. We love your comments. And I'm going to open up now for questions or comments about what we've covered today. And let me stop my share here and open it up to you. What questions do you have?
Scott, I might hop in here real quickly, just so everyone knows we have one Q&A or one question in the Q&A box. regarding if this will be recorded and sent out to participants in the webinar, and the answer is yes. So we will be sure and get a recording to all of you so that you can share with your teams.
Good. Betsy, I liked LaShawn's comment there in the chat. Jobs are not just jobs, and those mindsets are hindering. Jobs provide experience, skills, networks if people want it. They're the means of making money. Gratitude for those things would help. Yeah, you know, when you leave your next job, what you'll take with you is the relationships and experiences that you had, and hopefully both of those are positive. Nobody ever looks back and wishes that they had spent more time focused on filing papers or whatever. It's always the relationships that last. Really, no questions, huh? Well, good. Quiet group. Well, all right, we will go ahead and wrap up then. Really appreciate everybody for joining today. Hope this was helpful and beneficial, and hope you're all well on your way to being part of an extreme appreciation organization.
We do have a couple of things coming in on the chat. Everyone saying they love the presentation, thanking you. Scott, you explained it very well. Sarah's asking how much it costs to sign up. So sounds like Sarah's sold.
Well, yeah, so awesome, Sarah. We live in what we call no-brainer pricing territory, and we will get your contact information. Pricing's on the website. We have some volume and bundled discounts, and I could cover that. We do have 4 products, and they're called Connect, Recognize, Lead, and Listen. And the 2 that are focused on the concepts that we talked about today are Connect and Recognize. Connect is free. Recognize is what adds the money. We also have a product called Lead that helps managers be the kind of managers that you really want them to be. It gives a collaborative one-on-one tool. It helps them communicate priorities and helps them give regular and constructive coaching to their teams. And it gives them all of that in an environment where, as a new manager or even a veteran manager, they know exactly what to do and where to look. Then our 4th product is called Listen, which gives surveys, pulse surveys, ENPS, which is a job satisfaction surveys, and turnover analytics.
Awesome. Looks like we have a follow-up question to that. What's the ideal company size for Motivosity?
Yeah, if your company size is between 5 employees and 100,000 employees, you're going to love it. So we have our largest customers are, you know, in the tens of thousands, and our smallest customers are in the single digit numbers. And there's something there for everybody, because even if you're only on a team of 7 people, if you're in a company of 50,000 people, your team is probably still going to be 7 people. And that collaborative and appreciative spirit is fostered in either environment.
Awesome. Looks like we did have another question come through in the Q&A. So the question is, Scott, what do you do about people who just love to be negative within the company? How do you get them to incorporate more gratitude into their life?
Well, that is a great question, and there are people that they're tough. That's their default point of view is anything that happened for a bad reason. And it does help to surround them with positivity and gratitude. I'm not going to say that if that was a cure for everybody, the world would be a better place, but that does help. And the only other thing I can say, I've had people that I've worked with that have been that way before, and helping them see what they're doing is a little bit like the speed sign that you drive by. You know, you drive down your neighborhood and there's a blinking sign that says 45 on it, and the speed limit's 30, and that sign is just telling you how fast you're going. And that's proven to be the most effective way to control speeding. Same thing with these kind of behaviors. Just sitting down and pointing out, hey, I've noticed you do this, without being judgmental, without saying you have to change, or just saying, hey, I've noticed you do this in this situation, oftentimes is enough for people to become more self-aware if they aren't already.
Great, thanks. It looks like Chris is asking, how useful would Motivosity be in a nonprofit or academic environment?
Yes, that's a great question. This is not a vertical approach. This hits on core human nature and core human behaviors. And whether you're working in a nonprofit, and a lot of times nonprofit employees are there because they're really passionate about the company, about the organization's purpose. This feeds that even better than in an environment where people are there just for a paycheck. So I would say there's no different, there's no handicap there. You're not at a disadvantage because you're a nonprofit or a academic. One of our customers, we've got a college that has 8,000 people in Motivosity. They've been in there for 6 years, and they love it.
Yeah, they have been great. Says thank you. Awesome. Well, any other questions?
Oh yes, here's an awesome question. I want to tell you an experiment I did when I was first starting Motivosity, because one of my personal ideas about software is, unless people gravitate to it naturally without being told to, you're going to fail. Like, it's an uphill battle the whole way. And people are busy. They don't want to learn a new system. They already have a day job. They don't need another job. And so part of our whole design goal with Motivosity was, this system has to be your happy place at work. It has to be something you want to go to because you love it, and it can never feel like a job. So if we make people feel guilty, or if you have to beat people over the head or threaten them or remind them, like, that's not us, that's not where we're going. So to test whether or not we got this right, one of the early customers that I worked with, they had 800 employees, and they got a killer deal on Motivosity. And so I'm like, all right, since you're getting a killer deal, we got to launch in my test way here. And the test was, you can't say anything to the employees about this. All you can do is silently turn it on, and we're going to see how many people start using this. And so they agreed. So that's all they did. All we did was just turn it on. And there wasn't a company announcement or anything. And within 3 weeks, they had 98% participation in a company of 800 people. And that participation rate never went down. So if you're concerned about buy-in, we got that covered for you. Like, this is part of who we are.
Absolutely. That was a great question. All right.
Okay.
Well,
I'm glad we had some last minute questions come in. That was good there. The end, lively. I like it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Scott, for everything you shared and diving in deeper as to why a gratitude-centric workplace is so valuable and important. We really appreciate your time and hope everyone is walking away with something to implement, something they learned, and the change of mindset there.
Good. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Hope everyone has a great day. Thank you again for joining, and we'll be sure and get you the recording so you can send this out to your teams as well.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.